So according to experts, there are 37 things people will regret when they're old. 37 top regrets in life. So let me list the first 5, see if they apply to you. That's before pandemic crisis. Okay? So number 1, not traveling when you had the chance. Now for me, I don't have any regret because I traveled to Mexico a month before pandemic crisis lockdown happened. So no regret for me. Number 2, not learning another language. Well, not me. I speak 2 different languages, so that's I have no regret on that. Number 3, staying in a bad relationship. Well, not me. I have a great relationship with my spouse so far. Number 4, not wearing sunscreen. Well, not me. I have a brown color skin. That's a natural sunscreen, not like most of you. Number 5, missing the chance to see your favorite musicians. Well, not me. I went to see Paul McCartney last year when he was in Vancouver and performing at BC Stadium. So I was one of like 50,000 screaming fans. So far, no regrets. No regrets. What about you, folks? What about you? Anyway, I don't have that many regrets in life. Maybe about 3 or 4, certainly not 37. That's a lot of regrets. Like every time you make a particular decision, you come to regret later. I don't know, maybe I haven't lived long enough yet. Perhaps I'm just too busy living, think about regrets and stuff. Perhaps I'm also too full of myself. I don't know. Although I wish for certain things in my life and ministry to be turned out differently, I really don't regret the decisions I made and the road I traveled. No regrets, really. Now, so what does this have to do with the scripture text for today? Well, part of remembering our past truthfully lies in evaluating our past through faith as the people of God, not through the lens of success or failures. We need to have a standard, a measuring standard that goes beyond the list of regrets, successes, or failures. How does one look back and be able to say it was a life well lived? How would God evaluate us? Now, in today's Bible text is on the Beatitudes, the list of habits and lifestyle Jesus lays out for his disciples to live out every day. It's the sort of kind of standard of practice for the people of God. Jesus says, you live this way, you will be blessed, truly happy. Jesus said, blessed all, blessed all. Now, in extra biblical literature, the Greek term translated blessed, makarios, was used to describe 2 different conditions. First, it was used to describe the social condition of very high and wealthy citizens who lived above the normal cares and worries of lesser folks. And secondly, the term was used to describe the Greek gods' condition because they had whatever they desired, existed in an unbelievable state of well-being and satisfaction and contentment. That's what it meant in non-biblical literature. Now, of course, Jesus was not speaking to the wealthy, high-class Jewish citizens or the Greek gods when he said, blessed all. He was talking to a low-class, no-name, poor and ragged band of disciples. But by repeating the same word, makarios, to his band of simple-hearted, loyal followers, Jesus reassured them that the true happiness can be theirs through the ways and lifestyle taught by Jesus in the Beatitude. You are truly blessed if you live this way. Now, however, this is not easy. Living the Beatitudes would often lead ones to hardship and failures and gaining success and wealth. It is not a path to personal happiness in any worldly sense. There are many sacrifices to pay and little rewards. In other words, the Beatitudes lifestyle is not for the faint of heart, the weak of faith. It's not going to be easy. But we have Jesus and the saints who have paved the way of the Beatitude. We can follow their path. Today we celebrate All Saints Sunday. We have a great cloud of witnesses, the list of names that are written on the walls that you see in the prelude and also during our reflective music, the pillars that are posted on these church walls, and the list of names not written on the walls, but whose names have been engraved into the heart of this church over the years, a great cloud of witnesses, the saints who have gone before us. And of course, we have the great cloud of witnesses of Jesus Christ in the last 2,000 years who have paved the way of Beatitudes, the faithful followers of the one who was and who is to come, our Lord Jesus Christ. They are our model. So my encouragement to you and for all of us is to go over the life principles and habits in the Beatitudes and reflect and evaluate our lives and ministry. See where you are individually and where we have been as a community of faith as we measure and be accountable to this list of Beatitudes. It will give us an honest evaluation of our lives and provide us with a path for our future. Now, if I had a time, I would cover all 8 blessings in the list of the Beatitudes, but I will leave it until later to do that. Maybe I will give a talk series on the Beatitudes, something like 8 habits of most faithful Christians or something like that. But we'll do that later. But for today, our focus, I will only cover the first one. It sort of kind of summarizes the spirit of Beatitudes. The blessing promised is, this first one is repeated on the last one on the list. It plays more like a bookend, like one side of bookend to the other side of book. Right? It kind of summarizes, just keeps, and then maintains the whole list. So on the first one, Jesus says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit. They will inherit the kingdom of heaven." So, have we been poor in spirit? Now, Jesus doesn't say poor in substance, but poor in spirit. So what does that mean? Well, there is a close connection. If we closely examine what it means to be poor in substance, we could better understand what it means to be poor in spirit. And I know it's very hard for us to understand what it's like to be poor in substance because most of us have never been in a poor situation. I mean, really poor. You could imagine what it's like. We watch TV and read newspapers and we know what's happening to the people in developing countries and around the world and on the streets. But we don't really understand what it's like to be poor if we have never been in that poor situation, if we have never experienced it. I think I shared this before, that the closest I've ever been poor that I remember was once when I was about 9 years old. Unlike my wife, Sue, who came from a rich family, my family did not do so well. And back in the 60s in South Korea, we were poor, like the second most impoverished country in the world, even behind North Korea back then. I mean, we didn't starve or anything, but I remember getting hungry all the time. I'm not sure whether it was because I didn't have much to eat or just digest the food quickly. I was a hungry young child, always hungry. And once I was so hungry on the way to school, I had to take a rest. So I sat on a corner street, and there was this man passing by, handed me a candy. And I think he thought that I was a homeless beggar. So I took the candy and ate it. It was delicious, and went to school. And that was poor. That was poor. The other time was when I was in Toronto doing my seminary study and barely getting by financially. I think one time that I had no money. Like I looked at my bank account, and there was like only $100 left in my savings account. And that was all. And I still had about 10 days left until I get my paycheck from the church I worked as a part-time. $100 for 10 days, $10 per day for 3 hungry people in my family. So I was I felt desperate. So I called my mom and said, Mom, I'm hungry, I have no money. And she sent me money right away to cover for a while. So that's as close as I was in my poor situation. But compared to millions of people around the world, I wasn't poor at all. Compared to many people suffering from the economic hardship because of pandemic crisis, I am not poor at all. I have never gone through any of their hunger, their sufferings. And of course, compared to many, many people around the world who are starving, I am not poor at all. You know what, it's kind of ironic that certain countries like in North America, households and business are throwing out the food, a large amount of food to dumpsters every day, while on the other side of the planet, so many people would be so happy to eat the food we throw out. It's just so strange. But it's happening not only around the world, but also happening around us too. Last Thursday afternoon, I was sitting by the English Bay Beach enjoying the sun, and saw this guy going through a garbage bin and took out a bag and eating a half-eaten lunch someone just threw out. I don't know how long that bag has been there. And I'm like, what in the world is this? Why do we still have men scrounging and eating out of a garbage bin? Again, it disturbed me. And it's not the first time I saw this man did that. He is a familiar figure in that area. And he's not the only one who's doing that. I've seen many people. Now that's poor. We don't know what it's like just to eat one meal a day. We don't know what it's like to be really hungry for food. We don't eat because we choose not to eat. But the poor don't eat because they have no choice. We don't know what it's like to be poor, but we know that poor people are desperate people. Poor people are desperate people, desperate for food, but more than that, they are desperate for people's generosity. Poors don't exaggerate their importance or their need for privacy. Poors expect little from the competition and much from cooperation. Poors can distinguish between necessities and luxuries. The poor people can't wait, they have patience. The poor people have so little to lose and are ready for anything. To sum it up, poor people are desperate people. In other words, they are at the end of their rope. Poor in spirit means desperate in spirit. You are spiritually desperate and hungry. Hungry for what? Hungry and desperate for God. When your spirit is desperate, when your spirit is empty of yourself, when you are totally dependent on God, with less of you, you are ready for God's blessing, ready for kingdom of heaven. Just like the poor people desperately wait in the line for food, for us, with the same kind of desperation in our hearts, we wait for God, for God's love and generosity. See, when you are desperate for God, you come to God without any pretense, without any sense of self-importance and pride. You come to God knowing that you've got nothing to offer God, but yourself and everything to depend on God. Humbling before God is not an option for you because deep inside you know that you have nothing and that you are nobody. And you have no choice but to humble before God. When you are desperate in your heart, you don't come to God saying, well, I want to see what God has for me. If I want that or not, if I like it, I might consider it. Is it better than what I currently have? You don't do that. You don't compare. If you think that way, you are not desperate enough. If you still think about your other options, you are not hungry enough. It's not about making a choice between God or your career, God or your finance, God or your retirement, or for that matter, God or anything. It's about God and God only. There is no choice. There is no option but to choose God. God is bread of life for your soul and nothing else. God calls when we hit bottom, when we are desperate, when we are empty of ourselves. That's when God comes to us. This emptiness is where God sees that a person is ready to be used, to be able to receive. When we are holding on to something, it's hard to accept anything worth. When we are full of ourselves, there's no room for God. A spiritually desperate person says, God, anything you give me, I'll take it. Anything that comes from you is a whole lot better than the best I can offer to me. I am broke, God. I am at the end of my rope. You are my only lifeline. I have done everything I could. I have nowhere to turn. I have nothing else to try. I'm at the end of my rope. I ask for your mercy. I'm at the end of the road. I see no road, no way. A desperate person has this sense of radical turning toward God, day in and day out. I can't do anything, God. I depend on you for everything. Then God comes into this person's life and sets her life straight and continues to stay with her and direct her life. The poor in spirit are blessed. God is in their life. Are we desperate and hungry for God? Have we been desperate for God, really seeking God? And have we accepted what God gave us, whether we like it or not? Because what God gives us is much better than the best we can give to ourselves. You see, amid desperation, we often ask for God to deliver what we want and what we've been seeking to change our circumstances for better. And often God doesn't provide us what we want. The question is, can we still be able to accept and embrace what God offers us and even seek God continually? The sum of faith and the sum of our life is not what we receive from God or counting the blessings from God, but how desperate we were seeking God, seeking to be intimate with Jesus, seeking to advance God's righteousness, seeking to live the life of Beatitudes. And we have the saints who have gone before us, who have lived day in and day out, seeking God's righteousness, humbling themselves. And of course, we have Jesus Christ, the one whom we follow, who have lived and showed us how to lead the life of Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.